Welcome to Explorer's Guide Maritime Academy, our application help videos. I'm putting together a number of videos on the various parts of your National Maritime Center application. We get a lot of calls from our students and others on the application, and many people tell me that it's actually more stressful to fill out the application than it is to go through and take the courses and the exams. In our classroom environment, I go through in detail how to fill out these forms. So for our online class students as well as others, I'm going to go through and today we're going to talk about the application itself. May I suggest that you download the application from our website. These are linked to the National Maritime Center so that you get the most current forms. Just go to our application help page. Okay. There's a checklist. There are a number of elements that go into an application. It's not just the three-page form. And I'll go through each one of these and explain it. And we're going to go back through them and have a video clip on each one of them to give you a little bit better feel for what is required and how to do it. So you have an application with an old statement. You have your transportation worker identification credentials. You have a medical exam. It's a very basic medical exam, but it has to be done. It has to be done by a nurse practitioner, physician assistant, or an MD. It cannot be done by a chiropractor, for example. There's some drug testing requirements. You have to pay a fee of $145 to the federal government. $100 goes in for reviewing the application and $45 for the issuance of it. And then the C-service letters or forms, and they can get pretty complicated. We'll talk about that in the next video. Also, you need 90 days recency. There's a lot of times confusion on C-service, and one of the big things is that you must have 90 days of documented C-service on a vessel over the last 3 years. And the last 3 years is from the date that your application goes in. And we'll go back through the different routes, inland, Great Lakes, and your coastals. And finally, you need a first aid and CPR card. So we'll talk about each one of those after we go through the application. The application form, again, is 3 pages. There are some pages in front that are directions. However, there's the actual application is only 3 days. You're going to notice that there's an expiration date of 1/31/2016. This is the most current form. In fact, these expired about 2 months after they were actually issued. Eventually, I'm sure they're going to update them, but I just don't see it happening in the near term. Let's be able to see this a little bit better. So I'm going to go through the application today and explain each part of it. And again, if you can download one that you can view along, or you go back through the clip after you do download it. First thing is your legal name, last name, first name, middle name. Now this is very, very critical through the entire application process, all the various forms. It's got to be your official name, what's on your driver's license, what's on your passport, which is on your birth certificate. If it's Robert, you put down Robert for your first name. Don't put down Bob. So again, if the name has to be consistent all the way through. If you have a suffix like junior, senior, the third, whatever, again, put it in there. If you had a name change, or again, if you have maiden names, sometimes guys will hyphenate their names when they get married. For women, again, it'll be their maiden name has to be on there as well as your current one. Original application only, social security number. You have to have it on the form. As you go on, you're going to get a reference number that they will use, and that's how they will track you. So when the application actually gets in to the National Maritime Center, then they'll actually assign a reference number. But normally they'll start off with your social security, in particular the last 4 digits. Alien registration numbers, again, this all comes back to who can obtain a license. You have to be a U.S. citizen, as well as some naturalized citizens, a couple other areas that you can. Your birthday in month, day, and year. Citizenship. You're a U.S. citizen, so citizenship should be USA. Please don't put down America. There's like 22 countries that are in Americas. Put down USA, your place of birth, state, country, your eye color, and your color of your hair. Mine happens to have gone from brown to gray, so I put down gray. That's your basic information. That's the stuff that's going to show up in your on your license, your credentials. That's where they're going to find you in the databases. So again, make it consistent. Okay, the next part down is home address, not a P.O. box. So this is a street address, your primary phone number, city, state, zip code, and of course you can always put down an alternative number if you're so. Some people will have their primary number and then they'll have their cell phone number or a work number. If you want a different place for it to delivered, which includes a P.O. box, that's where you put the following done information: the address, the city, state, zip. Again, make it as accurate as you can. Otherwise, you're not going to get it. Email addresses. Pick one that is your email address that is staying around. They're going to communicate with you throughout the entire licensing process by that email. They're going to be sending you updates on where things are. If they ask for an AI letter, request for additional information, which we'll talk about in a moment, that's the best way to do it, is have them send you an email. So make sure it's an email that's active, that doesn't have real strict spam filters, or everything's going to end up in spam or whatever. But the key thing, make sure you got a very good email address that you're going to be using. Okay, further down on the form, under line 7A, there is an error. And when they did the form, it says they want the name and mailing address of your next of kin. But you will notice that they did not put a space for the name. It's an oversight on the people that put the forms together. So under street address, put down your next of kin's name. It could be wife, girlfriend, father, mother, sister, brother, whoever you want notified as next of kin. Their name and the beginning of their street address. If the street address is the same as yours above, just put down their name. If it is different, then again, complete the rest of the information. As you see up there where it says 7B, relationship optional, primary, secondary numbers, all those things are optional. However, if you do want them to contact those, should a situation arise, they're going to have some information. Okay, the next section is, what are you asking for? In class, I always make the big point: if you do not ask for it, you will not get it. I've had people who've done their OUPV class and a assistant towing, and they put down the OUPV, but they never requested the assistant towing. Well, they did not get it. Just because you're turning in a certificate does not mean you're going to, in fact, get that endorsement. You got to request it. So for those who are going in for the first time, it's an officer. You're an officer in the Merchant Marines. So check original. And then down below, we're going to put out what you're asking for. If it's a renewal, obviously you check renewal. If you lost your license, obviously you ask for duplicate. Raise in grade, increase in scope, new endorsements. So you're going to add after in a later date, you're going from your OUPV to your master's, raise in grade on it. If you are going to put your license in continuity, then you would check that box, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So describe the endorsements. So what I have down here is an OUPV with a near coastal endorsement. In the OUPV, there are 3 routes: near coastal, Great Lakes, or inland. So which route are you requesting? The Great Lakes includes all waters except for the ocean. Near coastal includes everything out to 100 miles. Inland includes everything that is not near coastal or Great Lakes. One as you go up the chain, obviously the one above it covers whatever's below it. So Great Lakes includes everything on the Great Lakes and all the inland waters. Now, if you're going to add any additional endorsements, like you may have assistant towing, then below this you would request an assistant towing endorsement, auxiliary sale endorsement. If you already took a master upgrade, same thing. You would then ask for an upgrade to master whatever your tonnage is, inland, Great Lakes, or near coastal. The key thing is you gotta ask what you want. If you don't have the right sea service or certificate, they'll be more than happy to tell you what you need. But if you don't put it down and turn in the certificates, they're not calling you up and say, oh, by the way, did you want this? That's your responsibility for it. Again, it's a very big issue in many of the licenses. Okay. The second page, we're getting into some additional information here. Box 1, if you already have had a TWIC card, Transportation Work Identification Credentials, and you don't want to renew it, then you would check that box. I believe they also got another form that you can also sign, but checking the box here should take care of it. It simply says, I had a TWIC, got it initially, however, I'm not going to renew it. They will go back and they will do a name search to make sure that there's not issues there. Section 2 is convictions and drug usage, not previously disclosed. So if you had done on an original application and now it's your renewal, you don't have to go back through it. However, it's your initial application, any of these items, if you check yes, must be disclosed on a form. And we'll talk very briefly about the form here. Have you ever been a user of or addicted to dangerous drugs, including marijuana, within the last 10 years? Have you been convicted of violation of dangerous drug laws throughout the states? Have you been convicted of any by any court, including military court, for any offense other than minor traffic violations? And again, I'll talk about what they mean by that. Have you ever been convicted of a traffic infraction arising in a connection with fatal traffic accidents, reckless driving, racing, etc.? Have you ever had your driver's license revoked or suspended for refusing to submit to an alcohol or drug test? Have you had a drug test with the results other than negative within the last 10 years? So these are the things that you're going to go through and you're going to answer yes or no. If you answer yes, then you got to conclude the drug statement, the conviction statement form. Now, there is a period of time that's set out in the CFRs on when these convictions no longer impact your license. If it's jail time, felony jail time, it's 7 years after that you're released. Other ones, most of the drug stuff, drunk driving, usually is 1 year after the conviction at a minimum. The conviction date, 1 year later. Again, there is out on 46 CFR a detailed list of the timelines on that. If you have a question, call the National Maritime Center. The number they have is 888-427-5662. You don't have to identify yourself. Just simply say, I got a question related to drug convictions, and they'll be happy to answer it. Okay, the next section, and again, this is on page 2 here, is the National Driver Registration. So you're giving them permission to go by and look at your driving record. Even though you have to give them permission, if you don't, they'll never issue your license. It's a mandatory provision that you will give them permission to do it. Okay. Let's look at the disclosure form here. You can use other ways of documenting this, but this is what they're recommending. So the first page explains it. The second page is where you would actually write in or type in the information. These are only filled out if you have a reportable conviction. So what is a conviction? A conviction, again, receives a conviction of a criminal, felony, misdemeanor, or a national driver registration offense. If you pled guilty, pled no contest, are granted a deferred adjustment, like going to a class, is required to attend a class, make contribution of time or money, such as public service. You're required to receive treatment, submit in any manner of probation or supervision, or forego appeal of a trial court's conviction. So those are what they say are convictions. A conviction of more than one offense at a single trial will be considered to be multiple convictions. Expurged convictions must be reported unless the expurgement, and I have no idea what that word means, was based upon a showing that the court earlier conviction was in error. So again, I have no idea what we have to look up the word. Provide copies of the court decision and orders or its equivalent if available for all convictions that are less than 5 years old. So if you had a DWI and you went through courts and you did the training and the other things that you were required, they're going to want to see, and that DWI is less than 5 years old, they're going to want to see the paperwork. Normally, in my experience, if the DWI is at least a year past the date of your application, they will accept that, but they still want the papers on it. And as page 2 of the form goes through and where you can write in all the different information. If you don't remember it, it was 15 years ago, do the best you can on explaining what happened, and normally that will not be an issue on it. Okay, maritime consent and certification. Again, they have a program in which if something happens in which they have to call up mariners for various issues in an emergency, they will go through a list. It's not mandatory, but they will go through a list and make calls. If you want to be on that list, check yes. If not, check no. It really doesn't make any difference, and most people end up checking no. Now, number 2, I understand that document continuity is not valid for use in accordance with 46 CFR and aware of the requirements to obtain a merchant mariner credential. Do not check this box. If you are going to put your license in continuity, then yes. Now, what is continuity? I have guys call up, ladies call up and say, hey, 15 years ago I had a license and I let it expire. What do I have to redo? Well, basically you got to redo the courses. If you have your license and you don't plan on using it or plan on using it for a long period of time, put it in continuity. You simply check this box. You go back to the first page where it says, what are you applying for? You're applying for continuity. And your license then is simply held. You cannot use it, but it's simply held. When you want to come back and get your license again, it's a simple renewal process. Application, direct tests, fees, medical, sea service. So you don't have to go through the exams and everything else. So if you ever hear anybody think, I don't need my license, down the road, maybe, have them put it in continuity. It's cost you absolutely nothing. Okay, box 3, if you're under 18 years old, notarized statement. The interesting thing is you can't get your license until 18. So I have absolutely no idea, except for a captain's license, except a person can be 16 and can get your credentials to work on merchant mariner boats. So you can be a deckhand at 16. That's where that box would come in. For a captain's license, you have to be at least 18. Okay, part 4. If you want anybody else to assist you on this, you would have this filled out and signed. It'd be basically a third-party request is what you're submitting. On occasion, I will help people out. The NMC, National Maritime Center, will not talk to me unless they have a third-party form on file. So if you want somebody to work with you or to help you, you got to file such a form. Or on your application here, you can do the same thing. Now, the oath. This is the oath. My signature below attests that, and these are the items that you're attesting to. In the past, it had to be done in front of a U.S. Coast Guard officer. Since the revisions in the code in 2014, it can be on any person who can give an oath or who can notarize. Most states, the notary can take an oath or an affirmation, and they can then sign it. So when that happens, do not sign the application until you've taken your oath. And this is only on originals. After the originals and you're doing a renewal or sending them additional information, this does not have to be under the seal of a notary or any individual who can give an oath itself. So these are the various parts of the first application. In the next video, I'm going to go through each of the next parts of it. However, I would suggest that you download the form and go through it with this video clip and fill it out the best you can. That's going to get you through a lot of it. Where applications are rejected, you get what's called an AI letter, request for additional information, which delays the process anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. So what you want to do is make sure all these little things are taken care of, all the check boxes are properly checked, and you provide what they're requesting on the application. Normal applications in this time of the year being in summer, early fall, can get through in about 6 weeks. If you wait until you get into February, March, April, May, you're going to wait up to as much as 12, 14 weeks, if not a little bit longer on it. The application itself is not sent to the National Maritime Center, but it's actually sent to the regional exam centers. And I'll talk more about that when we start talking about pulling your entire pack together. I hope this was very informative for you, and it helps you along the process. It really is not that difficult if you take it step by step, question by question, and make sure you provide them with complete answers. Until we do the next one, best of luck and good sailing.